Top of the day, beautiful people. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. It is October the 6th, 2022, day 231 of year 4 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1249. We are still reading the book of Judgment, which is found in the Oahspe. And we're starting in chapter 32 today, picking up on page 691. So let's go ahead and get into it, because we're going to keep it to the hour mark today. Before we get started, Father, you are the greatest teacher ever. All right. So remember, on the backup channel today, this will replay at noon. And hopefully, maybe, we'll see, because currently I'm on a flight. And if I don't get any signal, you won't see me in the chat. But if you see something from me, bless the most holy, I got a little bit of signal and I can talk to you back and forth, right? So everybody that's normally probably here already in the morning, hey everybody, hey Mom, Auntie, Shebrew, Tabitha, Nene, Alicia, Trina, Angela, we got Set Apart, Tikva, Selah, Shalom, people that come in from time to time, Malachi, Maccabee, Cosma and Cal, we got Derry CM, Shalom, Shalom, we got, forgive me if I don't call everybody name, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, Audrey, Shalom, Shalom, Ray, hi sis, hi, let's see who else be coming in first thing in the morning, forgive me, Global Purpose, Shalom, did I already say Global Purpose? But anyway, everybody that's present, that's normally here, and everybody that's normally hanging out in the background. Hey, everybody, let's get started. Chapter 32, page 691. God judgeth against war. God said, now behold, O man, I have declared my first and second resurrections unto thee. And in like manner is the third resurrection, but still higher. And so on are all the heavens of Jehovah, higher and higher, until the inhabitants thereof and therein become very lords and gods. And guys, if you're wondering why the light is off behind me, it's because the glare was extremely too much and I couldn't get it fixed, because I'm recording this a little bit different. It's completely being done on my phone this time instead of my laptop. And the glare was just too bad. So I had to use the light over here and the lights over here, and we just had to make sure that this just stayed off for the time being. All right, just in case you were wondering. Verse 2, nevertheless, hear thou, O man, the wisdom of thy God, and be appreciative of the way of resurrection being opened up unto thee. Now I declare unto thee, there are angels lower than the first resurrection, being incapacitated from various causes, from knowing who they are, whence they came, or whither they are going. Yea, many of them know not words of speech, nor signs, nor tokens, but are as destitute of knowledge as young babes. Many of them died in infancy. Some of them were killed by abortion. Some of them were idiots, and some of them deranged. Many of these live by fetal, and that thou mayest know what fetal is, behold, Jehovah hath given thee a testimony in mortality, whereby when a young child sleepeth with a very old person, that child is devoured of its substance. In such case, the old person is fetal on the young child. The old person is said to live by fetal. That's interesting. It makes me think about some older people when they get maybe their grandchildren. Maybe I ain't gonna say extremely old, it just sounds horrible, right? So say if you like up in age, but when younger children come around, I think this mentioned this before earlier on. The younger children being with the older people, it kind of helps like give them strength. If that's even like the right words, right? They don't necessarily live by the strength of the child, but in some way, the older person is strengthened by the presence of the young child, especially if they're there. Probably because, especially if they're the only one there and they're watching them. they got to make sure they stay on their P's and Q's. They got to stay sharp, right? So that's what I think about when I read this. I'm going to read the verse again. We're on page 692, verse 5. Many of these live by fetal, and that thou mayest know what fetal is, behold, Jehovah hath given thee testimony, immortality, whereby when a young child sleepeth with a very old person, that child is devourer of its substance. In such case, the old person is fetal on the young child. The old person is said to live by fetal. Now hear thou, O man, the judgment of thy God. Half the people born into the world, including stillbirths and abortions, die in infancy. Therefore, there are 1,000,000,000 angel infants fetal on the earth every 30 years. Yikes. These angels never obtain objective knowledge of the corporal earth, but are compelled to learn subjectively earthly things through mortals upon which they are fetal, upon mortals whom they are fetal. Judgment is rendered against all nations and peoples on the earth for this great darkness and these early deaths. And because these angels are thus bound to mortals and cannot go away from them until such time as mortals die, mortals are responsible and bound to train them up by examples of righteousness and good works. Holy crap. Listen, so if you got, listen, so this makes me think about back in 2010 when I had that ectopic pregnancy, right? I was about 2 months along. Remember I shared that story with y'all when I almost passed away, and I had to have that emergency surgery because my fallopian tube had ruptured on the inside. But since then, I had been having dreams about this little boy, right? And at first, every time I dreamt about it, and it's the same little boy, every time I dreamt about this little boy, I'm like, oh, who pregnant, right? And so I'm like, okay, so but by that time, I still had I hadn't had the last 4 children, right? That was before I had Josh. Josh is 11 now. There was Josh, then came Josiah, then Isaiah, then Bella, the last one. But the same little boy I kept dreaming about. And normally when I see children, I'll normally see them born at some period down the line. But even after these last 4 were born, this particular face I had not seen, right? And even when my grandbabies came, I'm like, that's not the baby that I saw. That is not the baby that I saw, right? It was a little boy. And when baby girl came, she's the last one from my oldest son right now. I was like, little boy I saw was a girl, right? But then I was saying, okay, maybe this represented something spiritual. Now I'm more apt to believe the child that I hate to say had to be aborted. It wasn't aborted. They had to medically terminate the pregnancy to save my life. I want to say now that that child that I saw in my dreams was that child that I had the ectopic pregnancy. I could be wrong, but I want to say I'm almost certain of it now. I really am. You know, and even as recently, I would still have dreams about this little boy, right? So when I read this, I think about that, right? Let me read this again. And this is talking about these young babies, those who die in infancy, stillborn, born before the birth. Passed away before the actual live birth. Even if they die after they're born, and sometimes even while they're still in infancy, these spirits of these babies, because they didn't have time enough to develop here, they're fetal onto their parents, right? Their mother. Remember, this actually goes into detail. I want to say it was the Book of Divinity. Don't quote me. I want to say it was the Book of Divinity, where it gets into deep detail about this, about children, infants. If y'all remember, go ahead and put it in here. Put the reference. Let me just look real quick because I know I got to highlight it. Trying to just flip without going to the table of contents, the Book of Divinity. Hold on, let me just check real quick, y'all. Just real quick. That way, if anybody's new here and they have it, and they missed that part when we read it, 237 is where it starts. Page 237 is where it starts. Like I said, don't quote me. I could be wrong, but I want to say, oh yeah, this is going through the ranks. I'm almost certain. Yeah, y'all got to go back and read through the book of divinity. Talk about marriage, the ranks of the different spirits from the time they pass into, from the time they die here, and as they grow, if they continue to grow, right? And that's your choice. And it tells you how long that you should be. Okay, in the case of a Zarathustrian child that died in infancy. Okay. Yeah, definitely. It's in the book of divinity, y'all. Spirits of newborns. Yep. Chapter 3. Man, read the whole book. Like, it'll take you, if you just sit and read, or you can even find it. Somebody read it without any kind of breaks or any extra stuff. If you just sat there and read it, it may take you like an hour to read through the whole book of divinity, if that long. I would recommend just go read the whole book. But if you want to jump right to what's happening with the babies, y'all, it's in chapter 3, but I say start at chapter 1 so you can just get everything that it's sharing with you, right? I just don't recommend you skipping around in here because you might miss something, and it kind of like builds on the different things that it said previously. Okay, so yeah, in the book of divinity, go there, and that's where it talks about, and I think it's another place too, don't quote me, but if you find it in another place other than the book of divinity, please share the reference down here in the comment section or in the chat box for me, and for anybody else who's looking for it. But this is what I think about. I want to say that that child that I've been seeing is that child from 2010 when I had that surgery, right? So when I read through this the first time, when I got through the book of divinity, I began to sit and think about it. And I was just kind of wondering, I'm like, are you the baby that I keep seeing? Right? I don't really like get an answer, but I keep wondering. It's just kind of like quiet as I talk. But if it is, I'm raising the baby up, right? Especially if they fetal to me still now, right? If they haven't, cause shucks, that's 2010. We're in 2022, so this would be what, 12 years, So shucks, with all the reading that I've been doing out loud with the Bible, whatever is fetal to me, they got a good dose of the KJV and Oahspe and everything else I read through. My prayer life and all that stuff, right? I don't know. But let me keep reading, y'all. But the whole point of saying is I think that's the baby that I've been seeing, the one that I, from 2010. Okay, let me go back to verse 3. Now I declare unto thee, there are angels lower than the first resurrection, being incapacitated from various diseases, from knowing who they are, whence they came, or whither they are going. Yea, many of them know not words of speech, nor signs, nor tokens, but are as destitute of knowledge as young babes. Many of them die in infancy. Some of them were killed by abortion. Some of them were idiots, and some of them deranged. Many of these live by fetal, and that thou mayest know what fetal is, behold, Jehovah hath given thee testimony in mortality, whereby when a young child sleepeth with a very old person, that child is devourer of its substance. In such case, the old person is fetal on the young child. The old person is said to live by fetal. Now hear thou, O man, the judgment of thy God. Half the people born into the world, including stillbirths and abortions, die in infancy. Therefore, there are 1,000 million angel infants fetal on the earth every 30 years. These angels never obtain objective knowledge of the corporal earth, but are compelled to learn subjectively earthly things through mortals upon whom they are fetal. Judgment is rendered against all nations, and peoples on the earth for this great darkness, these early deaths. And because these angels are thus bound to mortals and cannot go away from them until such time as mortals die, mortals are responsible and bound to train them up by examples of righteousness and good works. Now, aside from such angels, there are such as are slain in war, whose minds are in chaos, who, dying in the heat of passion and fear and anger, become wild and bound on battlefields, or mayhap stroll away into deserted houses and castles and are lost, bewildered, and unapproachable. Of these, there are hundreds of millions, and they are in all countries and amongst all peoples in the world. They are distracted and tormented with their own fears and bewilderment. Judgment is rendered against all nations and people in the world who engage in war, thus bringing these afflictions upon the angels of heaven. Judgment is rendered against every nation and all people in the world who carry on war or who are accessory to war, whereby any man created alive by Jehovah is slain in defense of any king or other ruler, or in defense of any country or government in all the world. And whether war be offensive or defensive, my judgment is against its aiders and abettors, and against the kings and queens or other rulers who are parties to war, willingly, knowingly, or otherwise. Ain't nobody getting past that. And I judge him guilty also, who is general, commodore, captain, sergeant, or private, that engageth in war, or take part therein, abetting, or otherwise, whereby any man created alive by Jehovah is slain or caused to suffer death. And yet, aside from angels who are in chaos, there are hundreds of millions who are in declension instead of resurrection. Such angels are those who in mortal life were whipped and tortured in prisons, or mayhap were hanged or otherwise put to death. These angels take delight in evil instead of good. Sometimes they go about singly, and sometimes in gangs of hundreds and even thousands. In olden times, the false gods used such angels to fulfill curses on mortals and to carry poison in the air and inoculate mortals with foul diseases. Behold, in this day my angels have shown thee that they can bring flowers and ponderous bodies. Even so could the false gods with their trained warrior angels who delighted in evil cast mortals in death by poisons and suffocations. There is it's a plate 92 right here. Maybe it's going to explain it. I'm gonna keep reading. I'm gonna keep reading and see when this refers to these plates, plate 92, 93, and 94. But if I get past chapter 35, I'll go back to the plates and show them to you. I just want to make sure, like I have an explanation for these when I show them to you. Okay. I know they're not just put in here willy-nilly, but I need to be able to line it up with the right portions of the scripture. But also right here, something I just learned. I'm kind of curious about it when we get over here to Hawaii, right? So I learned about the volcanoes. We're going to try and take this tour of a volcano, right? It's a live, active volcano. They have like places set out where you can tour, but not get like too close. They even have helicopter rides. If they have some open, we're going to take a helicopter ride and we're going to tour it from above as well. But there, they tell you there are like sacred mounds and places and stuff. And so we learn about the etiquette in Hawaii. Make sure we won't do nothing crazy to disrespect nobody, all that stuff, right? So we're watching YouTube videos from people that's over there. Plus, my auntie lived over there for some years, and she was just giving us some pointers on where to go. But anyway, apparently, out there, and I forget the name. I should have wrote it down, but I'll once I get it, I'll post it in like the community section so you can see. And some of you may know about it, especially if you've been to Hawaii anyway. But anyway, they have like sacred places to where they tell you don't take the rocks, right? Like the molten lava rocks or whatever, because there's a goddess that protects the island over there. So when I read that, of course, I mean, when I was listening to it, my ears perked up, you know, especially with what I've been learning about the spiritual realm in Oahspe. So I'm like, okay, so we're going to get over there, especially in Pearl Harbor. And I'm sure there's probably maybe still a lot of spirits and chaos over there. So I want to make sure I'm on my P's and Q's, like spiritually, just in case I get tuned into any of the frequencies over there. But anyway, the whole point is they tell you not to take these molten lava rocks, because whatever goddess that is that protects it, if you remove the rocks from its native land, a curse will come upon you, right? So the video we was watching that was telling us about this, they said some people don't believe it and they sneak the rocks anyway. And they say, they kid you not, their post office there gets letters mailed back to Hawaii on a daily basis, packages with rocks that the people have taken, and they have it addressed back to the goddess there in Honolulu. I'm like, this, first of all, it's amazing, right? Because they didn't, some people think this is a joke. Clearly, we ain't gonna go take none of this molten lava rocks. We ain't bringing that. No, we is not bringing that back here with us, right? But it's good to know. At least I want to like kind of go around and just lay my eyes on it and see what the what the big talk about all of it is. We ain't taking none of it. I just want to look and see, right? But yeah, they say they get packages mailed back to the post office on a daily basis with all the different size rocks that people have taken from there, and they mailed it back because things started going haywire spiritually for them, right? And so they was like, they attributed back to this, and they knew they had taken it, right? Some people just say like, yeah, that's a bunch of garbage, we're gonna take a rock as a souvenir. Then stuff started going haywire, and once they realized, oh shoot, this started happening when I bought this molten lava rock, we sending this back, right? They address it to the goddess of whatever that sacred shrine place is, right? But I thought that was really interesting, right? So I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna like take pictures. We ain't bringing nothing. We ain't bringing nothing back. I'll take pictures. That's about it. Even if stuff start happening, I will burn the pictures. But you know, I'm kind of curious about these things. I'm learning about the spirit, and sometimes I just be nosy. I got to go see some stuff. Okay. All right. So let me go back here. All right. Hold on. We were verse 19. I read 18 again on page 692. In olden times, the false god used such angels to fulfill curses on mortals and to carry poison in the air and inoculate mortals with foul diseases. Behold, in this day my angels have shown thee that they can bring flowers and ponderous bodies. Even so could the false gods with their trained warrior angels, who delighted in evil, cast mortals in death by poisons and suffocations. Judgment is rendered against all nations and peoples who use prisons as places for whipping and torturing prisoners, and against all nations and people who put to death by hanging, shooting, or in any way whatsoever any prisoner or any person whom Jehovah created alive. Like killing, just don't do it, period. Just don't. Judgment is rendered against the judge and the jury who condemn to death any man, and against the lawmakers who make or have left in force a law authorizing death as a penalty against any person Jehovah created alive, and against any sheriff or executioner that putteth to death willingly or knowingly any person Jehovah created alive. What's a whole lot of law enforcement that's gonna have the hell to pay the captain, literally. And this is the bondage I put upon all such as obey not my judgments and conform thereto. They shall not rise above the first resurrection in heaven, whilst war remaineth upon the earth. Even though their bondage be 100 years or 1,000 years, yet this my judgment against them shall not be put aside. And everybody that's counting yourself and marking yourself and giving a verdict to yourself of not guilty, Yahuwah said, my judgment will not be put aside. The Creator said, my judgment against them shall not be put aside. Neither shall any king, nor queen, nor any other ruler in all the world impress as a soldier any man who is unwilling to engage in war, and whosoever obeyeth not this my judgment shall not rise above. And whosoever obeyeth not this, my judgment shall not rise above the first resurrection in heaven, whilst war remaineth on the earth. That's a long time. He said, not to just the people you didn't screwed around, right? He said, to war no longer remains on the earth. Neither will I more consider the prayers of any king or queen or any other ruler or any nation or people in all the world who engage in war, offensive or defensive, or who aid or abet war in any way whatsoever. But I will abandon all such people, and my lords shall abandon them, and my holy angels shall abandon them, and they shall be abandoned unto their own harvest of evil spirits, and to all manner of druhas. And they shall be abandoned unto their own harvest of evil spirits. After unto is reference number 56. 56. And 56 at the bottom says, shall be left as a prey to their, and then it goes on up at the top, their own harvest of evil spirits, and to all manner of druhas. Verse 27, page 693. And they shall be afflicted with assassinations and intriguers and despoilers, and with any anarchy and riots and destruction. For they shall be made to understand that whomsoever Jehovah createth alive is sacred upon the earth, and that whosoever heedeth not these my judgments sinneth against the Almighty. Behold, it is not sufficient apology for them to say, oh, an evil king will come upon my country and possess it. I say unto thee, O man, all countries are Jehovah's. Be thou his servants unto peace and righteousness, having faith in him. Behold, thy God hath come to put away old things, and to give unto you the kingdoms of Jehovah, as they are in his exalted heavens. Heed thou the judgments of thy God. Thou canst not stay the hand of the Almighty. The next chapter, chapter 33. God judgeth against exclusiveness. Exclusiveness. And if you're reading it online, it's chapter XXXIII. God said, hear the judgments of thy God, O man. Look thou upon all the world with the eye of a God. Be thou comprehensive in judgment over all nations and peoples upon the earth. Jehovah hath said, out of my very self created I all the living. Brothers and sisters made I them from the members of my body. Jehovah hath said, in the early days of a world, behold, I provided unto man different continents and islands, separated by mighty waters, that man in one division of the earth might not interfere with man in another division of the earth. The whole outer Africa theory? You might want to reconsider this. Jehovah hath said, in the early days of a world, behold, I provide unto man different continents and islands, separated by mighty waters, that man in one division of the earth might not interfere with man in another division of the earth, right? We done probably already figured that out by now, seeing that here's something amazing, right? The skeletal structures of the Caucasian and the Negro, African American, whatever you want to call them, even actual Africans. Let me tell you, they can tell the race of a people not by the color, but by the skeletal and the length and the space between like the eyes and the nose, the mouth, and all that stuff. That's how they determine the color of a people, that all the remnants they have is just the bones. Verse 4. Jehovah has said, in the early days of a world, that means everybody don't come from the same man and woman. I'm just want to throw that out there if you hadn't figured that much out yet, right? That's what they teach you, but it's impossible if you sit and think about it. We ain't gonna get into it. I might read a thick reference book that I got on it. Verse 4. Jehovah has said, in the early days of a world, behold, I provide unto a man different continents and islands separated by mighty waters, that man in one division of the earth might not interfere with man in another division of the earth. Jehovah hath said, behold, one nation and people I allot to one civilization, and another nation and people I allot to another civilization, separately on the different divisions of the earth, and on the islands and the seas, situated the different peoples I created. Jehovah hath said, but when the world groweth older, and man attaineth to wisdom, I say unto him, build thou ships, and sail across the waters I created. Go visit thy brothers and sisters in the different divisions of the earth. Right? Who would you go visit if everybody came from the same mama and daddy? I'm just saying. Jehovah hath said, and man mastered the ocean, and cometh to his brothers and sisters afar off, and I say unto man, because thou hast mastered the ocean, let this be a testimony unto thee, that there shall be no barrier henceforth between all the nations and peoples I created. Jehovah hath said, listen, all the nations and peoples I created. Shucks. The doggone book of Jubilees, yes, the book of Jubilees, chapter 2, says 26 kinds I made. Who was it just talking about? It was talking about the people that the Creator created, right? This is why they separate stuff to give you the authorized version we want you to read. Remove everything else. They be done figured it out. Jehovah has said, in Cosmon I come saying, be ye brethren. Let me just go back up. Let's go back up to 5. Let me just start all over. I'm going to just start at verse 1. God said, hear the judgments of thy God, O man. Look thou upon all the world with the eye of a God. Be thou comprehensive in judgment over all the nations and peoples upon the earth. Jehovah hath said, out of my very self created I all the living. Brothers and sisters made I them from the members of my body. Jehovah hath said, in the early days of a world, behold, I provided unto man different continents and islands, separated by mighty waters, that man in one division of the earth might not interfere with man in another division of the earth. Jehovah hath said, behold, one nation and people I allot to one civilization, and another nation and people I allot to another civilization. Separately on the different divisions of the earth, and on the islands in the seas, situated I the different peoples I created. Jehovah hath said, but when the world groweth older, and man attaineth to wisdom, I say unto him, build thou ships, and sail across the waters I created. Go visit thy brothers and sisters in the different divisions of the earth. Jehovah hath said, and man mastered the ocean, and cometh to his brothers and sisters afar off. And I say unto man, because thou hast mastered the ocean, let this be a testimony unto thee, that there shall be no barrier henceforth between all the nations and peoples I created. Jehovah hath said, and Cosmon I come, saying, be ye brethren upon the face of the earth and upon the waters of the earth. These are the legacies I bequeath unto my children. Jehovah hath said, be ye a help and a prophet unto one another, judging wisely of the differences which circumstances and places of habitation have developed in the races of man. Now I, thy God, O man, declare this judgment. Declare this judgment unto thee. Inasmuch as thy wisdom has surmounted the corporal barrier, the ocean, betwixt thee and thy brother, it is meet and proper that thy soul surmount the barrier of prejudice against thy brother, and that instead of making laws against him, thou shalt do the opposite of this, and throw open the place of thy habitation, and thy soul and thy love to receive thy brother, godlike and with open arms. Flatter not thyself that thou can turn aside or set backward the seasons of the Almighty. Wherein thou dost this, affliction shall surely come upon thee. Behold, I have made the heavens of the earth universal, and established heavenly roadways around about the earth, that the angels of the different nations and peoples may be as angels of universal heavens to help one another. Wilt thou make a law to incite the enmity of the spirits of the dead against thee, and open the door for still more aggressive wars? Shall the laws of man interdict the march of Jehovah? Now behold, when Cosmon came, I said unto thee, come with thy God peacefully, shalt thou knock at the doors of China and Japan, and they shall open unto thee. This thou accomplished, and those who had been exclusive hundreds of years turned from the olden ways to welcome Jehovah's hand in thy coming. And after coming is reference number 57, and 57 at the bottom says thy promises. Now I declare unto thee, I will not more have exclusiveness in any of the nations and peoples in all the world. Neither shall there be taxes and duties of one nation or people against another. Behold, thou hast asked for the Father's kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven, and I will give unto thee. As thou hast prayed, so will I answer thee in the name of Jehovah. Thou shalt not serve both Jehovah and Mammon. Neither shall the light of my heavens be with thee, save thou heedest my judgments. I will have all the ports open and free, nor shall there be partisan taxation in favor of one nation against another, nor of one people against another people. It is not excusable for thee to say, lo, the poor foreigner will come and consume my riches. Thou shalt say the opposite, welcome my poor brothers and sisters. Whatsoever is mine is yours also. Come ye and dwell within my country. It is ample, and Jehovah will provide unto us. Isn't this amazing? How the Father, when we find out how the Father actually is, and He ain't telling us to do stuff that'll get us thrown in jail here, like go ahead and kill them, take that land, because I promised it to you anyway. They don't want to leave, then take it by force. Doing that today in this time will get you thrown in jail. If not killed by the people you're trying to take the stuff from. Because over here in the States, they allow you to carry weapons and defend yourself. Stand your ground, right? You can't be listening to a God that's going to get you strung up, hung up, and possibly in the grave early, in chaos, right? And now you up in the S world because you didn't listen to a God that love you. No, bruh, He trying to capture you for His slave army. When you leave your flesh, He's trying to get you to forfeit your flesh early so you can help Him build His kingdom of wickedness until He can't no more, right? He get caught and thrown in the knot. We got to be smarter than that. We got to be a little bit quicker than that. Listen. Oh, that was the end of the chapter. I was trying to find my spot. Okay. Chapter 34, or chapter XXXIV. God judgeth the governments of a man. God said, when a man hath young children, he maketh just laws in order to teach them discretion, justice, harmony, and consideration in regard to one another. But when his children attain to be men and women, man no longer holdeth a law over them, for they are become his equals as brothers and sisters. Even so, in the ancient times provided I thee, O man, with governments and laws for different nations and peoples. Nevertheless, I said unto thee, let thy government be as a father over the people, and not as a separate matter against them. But thou hast disobeyed my commandments. Thy government is as one thing, and thy people as another thing. That which should be one entity, thou hast made into two. Thy government hath become a separate self from the people, and the people are as servants, supporting the lawmakers who trade in projects and schemes for their own profit and glory. We know that to be true. Shoot, before in 1881, when they wrote this, before the government got the way it is, they already prophesied what we was gonna be at today, right? It's a bunch of crap. It's happening just like it said. Okay. So after the government hath become a separate self from the people. After people is reference letter E. Remember, the letter references are found at the end of the book. So we go to page 700. And E says, this applies well enough to monarchies and may in some degree apply to our republic. Sure enough do. 1882 edition. So go back to page 694. Verse 6. Thy government hath become a separate self from the people, and the people are as servants, supporting the lawmakers who trade in projects and schemes for their own profit and glory. Since the earliest days, all the governments of man have drifted into this. When a government no longer filleth the grave according to the advancement of the people, behold, thy God withdraweth his heavenly protection from that government, and straightway the people run into anarchy. We saw that during the last election, right? People storming the White House. When has that ever happened? Never. Well, it has, but in our days, us being alive, I'm reading verse 6. Thy government hath become a separate self from the people, and the people are as servants, supporting the lawmakers who trade in projects and schemes for their own profit and glory. Since the earliest days, all the governments of man have drifted into this. When a government no longer filleth the grade according to the advancement of the people, behold, thy God withdraweth his heavenly protection from that government, and straightway the people run into anarchy. Lay not the blame of anarchy and revolution and assassinations on the people. My judgment is against the government in all cases. These conditions of vengeance are but the fruit resulting from the government's divergence from the will of Jehovah and the march of his light. As, for example, the offspring of inharmonious parents, or of parents wrapped up in selfishness, are lower in grade than their predecessors, even so do the subjects of a king decline in grade in proportion to the prevention of liberty and neglect of general instruction. Let me read that again, just in case you nodded off. Let me go back up to 9. Matter of fact, let me just go back to 8. When a government no longer filleth the grade according to the advancement of the people, meaning you good for nothing now, you ain't helping nobody grow. When a government no longer filleth the grade according to the advancement of the people, behold, thy God withdraweth his heavenly protection from that government, and straightway the people run into anarchy. Lay not the blame of anarchy and revolution and assassinations on the people. My judgment is against the government in all cases. These conditions of vengeance are but the fruit resulting from the government's divergence from the will of Jehovah and the march of his light. As, for example, the offspring of inharmonious parents or of parents wrapped up in selfishness are lower in grade than their predecessors. Even so do the subjects of a king decline in grade in proportion to the prevention of liberty and neglect of general instruction. Judgment is rendered against government wherein it provideth not liberty to the people, and neglecteth providing means for the development of the talents created with all. In these respects, O man, governments are measured and graded by thy God, and whenever a government setteth up itself to enforce and strengthen itself by violence against justice unto the multitude, behold, I turn away from that government, and I call away my lords and holy angels. And thereupon Druhas come upon that people, and the people fall upon their government and destroy it. If a government be a king only, and he have no holy council, then the responsibility of the shortness is wholly his. But if the king have a holy council, then the responsibility for shortness lieth partly with the king and partly with the council. Judgment is rendered against them, not only in this world, but in the S world, meaning in the world to come. In the spiritual realm, when you die and turn your flesh back over to the earth. Judgment is rendered against them, not only in this world, but in the S world. And each and every member of such council shall be bound in the first resurrection until he hath made amends unto all his people for the shortness he manifested on the earth. And a lot of times that will not be done while those people still have their flesh, right? You got to labor with them same people after they also turn their flesh back over to the earth, to the dirt. And now they're in the S world. Especially, boy, you gonna be here for some time. You might be here with them jokers they got to be here till war is no longer on the earth. That what you here for, man? You see all these people, all of them. Man, I wish I had did so much more when they still had their flesh. They run around here like naked toddlers. And that's what's happening. And you got to help them get clothed. You got to train them up, and half of them ain't listen to you. They running through the house hollering, knocking stuff over, pissing in their corner, like everything. Like, oh, you thought you were getting away from this? Let me go back to verse 12. In these respects, oh man, we're on page 695, verse 12. In these respects, O man, governments are measured and graded by thy God. And whenever a government setteth up itself to enforce and strengthen itself by violence against justice unto the multitude, behold, I turn away from that government, and I call away my lords and holy angels. And thereupon Druhas come upon that people, and the people fall upon their government and destroy it. If a government be a king only, and he have no holy council, then the responsibility of the shortness is wholly his. But if the king have a holy council, then the responsibility for shortness lieth partly with the king and partly with the council. Just like with our president, right? It lies partly with him and partly with the Congress and partly with the Supreme Court justices. That whole system, all three of them, and their little holy triangle, all of them share a third of the responsibility. If the king have a holy council, then the responsibility for shortness lieth partly with the king and partly with the council. Judgment is rendered against them, not only in this world, but in the S world. And each and every member of such council shall be bound in the first resurrection until he hath made amends unto all his people for the shortness he manifested on the earth. Hear the wisdom of thy God, O man, and consider the way of righteousness in the governments of mortals. The nearer the twain are to being one, that is, the government and the people, the nearer they are like unto my heavenly kingdoms. The more diverse the government is from the people, the farther it is from the kingdom of thy God. Let this be a guide unto thee, O man, in prophesying the change and the overthrow of governments, according to the square of the distance. According to the square of the distance, a government is from Jehovah, which is righteousness. So is the quickness of its coming to change or destruction. Think not these matters are governed by chance or accident. Jehovah is perfect righteousness, the all everlasting. He is all one. For a people and their government to attain to be all one with each other, this is great strength, with a long existence and internal peace. This also shalt thou consider, O man. All governments are tending toward oneness with one another. This is the march of Jehovah. None can stay him. Consider then what is wisdom between governments, to make themselves reciprocal toward one another. A government that setteth up itself for itself and against other governments is a selfish government. And thy God rateth it the same as a selfish man, being diverse from Jehovah and his kingdoms. Judgment is rendered against such a government. Neither my lords nor my holy angels shall bless that government. Governments that practice affiliation to bring about reciprocal brotherhoods between governments are on the right road toward the Father's everlasting kingdoms. Flatter not thyself, O man, that these matters can escape the observation of thy God. The affairs, legislations, laws, treaties, and all other things whatsoever that governments accomplish are known and recorded in the heavens of the earth. And the leaders, kings, and councils shall soon or late face them, and they shall judge of their own fullness or shortness in serving Jehovah in righteousness and wisdom. Next chapter, chapter 35. Where we at? We at 51 minutes. Hey, the time going by fast. Oh, this about to get so good. I mean, it's been good, but look, I did kind of read ahead a few weeks ago in the book of Judgment because somebody mentioned something. Let me show you. I got it all highlighted up. Look at this. Yo. Okay. So before we go any further, let me just show these 3 plates to you. Although I haven't mentioned it yet, let me just show it to you. Okay, so plate 91. Matter of fact, hold on. I think we saw this plate 91 before. I think this was referred to, I think, back when we was reading about Begon God, right? If I'm not mistaken, but let me show it to you anyway. Plate 92 on page 692 is Gall, Gall, and it looks like this huge statue type building, maybe a temple of worship or whatever. And you can see down at the bottom, it's the little people around it, possibly walking into it, coming out of it. It looked like some of them got like a hand up, maybe 2. A couple people look like they're carrying something. Some people look like they're dragging something, or could be a shadow. Let me show that to you. Right here. Hold on. These are little people down here. Okay, so that's that. And if we come across it, what it is, when it explains it, we'll come back to it. But I just want to show it because it's here. And plate 93 is on the next. That was on page 692. On the next page, on 693, is plate 93, and it's rates. RATES. If you're military, you know what rates are. It's like you have ranks and you also have rates, right? The ranks is like the levels, like the lower level ranking officers that goes to the higher. Those are the ranks. But within those ranks, there are different rates, right? And the different rates are like the distinctions between the different jobs. You have like medical rates and engineering rates and culinary rates, right? And that's what I think about when I see this. If I'm wrong, when we get to it, I'll correct it. But that's what it's looking like to me, rates. And it's talking about ranks through here as well. So I'm thinking that I might be right. If I'm not, I will correct it. If somebody else then already figured this out and I'm wrong, let me know so I can correct it. So this is it right here. And it has like, it's starting at 1, then 3, then it's like multiplying going up, right? Kind of like a building, it's like an upside down pyramid where it starts at 1 and then it just begins to multiply as it goes up. All right, so that's that. Plate 93. But there's also, which I'm thinking it is, y'all, because the next plate is the actual grades, right? So what I just explained, I just used like different terminology for the military. Plate 94 is like the same thing, but it's flipped right side up to where it's like a right side up pyramid. This is an upside down looking pyramid structure. The other one is right side up. That's on page 694 here. And this one, oh, let me make sure it ain't blurry. Okay, so this one says plate 94 grades. So that's that. Okay. So like I said, if we get to it and I figure it out, I'll go back to it and I'll make corrections if I screwed that up. All right, if y'all already know, help a sister out. Post it in the comment section of the chat, something. All right. Chapter 35, page 695. So I think we're just gonna, maybe I should read 2 more, right? Oh, wait, because we got 1 more day. I'm thinking Friday we're gonna finish this. I gotta leave, hold on. We're gonna pause after this, after chapter 35, because we're already like the 56-minute mark. We're gonna pause, and then we're gonna save this last few chapters for Friday. Then that'll be ending the book of Judgment, unless for some reason we spend a very long time in one of the other chapters and it end up being 2 more days. But we're gonna end it after this. All right, chapter 35, page 695. And the Roman numeral for 35 is XXXV. And the subtitle under chapter 35 says, God declareth against the governments of man. God said, whoso liveth with Jehovah is free from Jehovah. These need no man's government. Hold on. God said, whoso liveth with Jehovah is free from Jehovah. These need no man's government, for they practice righteousness, peace, love, industry, and wisdom with due regard to one another. Okay, I get it. It's like the law is made for, not for the righteous, but the lawbreakers, right? You really only need a law for those who are breaking things and have no regard for anything or anybody, right? So you need a law to get the lawbreakers into shape. But those who live a righteous lifestyle, you don't have to beat them over the head with the law, because they are walking, living law, right? Literally. So I get that. All right, so I'll start over. God said, whoso liveth with Jehovah is free from Jehovah. These need no man's government, for they practice righteousness, peace, love, industry, and wisdom with due regard to one another. Such is the Father's kingdom on earth, in which there shall be no laws made by man, neither shall there be leaders or rulers. The progress of man is towards this. The progress of the governments of man should shape toward such a consummation. Oh, it'll be a wonderful thing. We definitely won't be here during that time. We'll already be in the S world, like multiple, maybe even hundreds of years before this particular phase of earth development gets here. But we'll see it all. We'll get to see it all, and we'll be able to help during these times those who are still living. We will actually get the opportunity some future time down the road to actually see the Father's kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, where it's peace, and they're walking in the fullness, right? But earth at that time will probably be at an older age and be getting ready to pass away, to where the man here on earth, that's probably at the time where man is about to start getting ready to be extinct somewhere down the line, right? Because we've reached our full maturity and we've extracted everything from this particular earth that we possibly could. Earth has served her purpose, and now the children of the earth will be no more, right? And It'll do what it does, right? And the process will start all over. It'll start over with another one, but it's not like only one at a time. There are multiple worlds that this is happening on, from my understanding, right? And this process will never end. Okay, and all the different angels or messengers or those helpers in the S world, not all of them come from the earth. They're from multiple other worlds, right? Especially the ones higher up in the ranks. They definitely don't come from earth. They come from other worlds. I know that might sound like blasphemy, a little bit edgy to some people that may just be coming in for the first time. But if you read through Oahspe, you will understand why I'm saying that, right? So, and we'll be starting over soon. In a few weeks, we'll be starting this over. Because the last page before we even get to the glossary, and we're going to read the glossary. The last page of this is 768. Y'all, we already on page 695. I can't believe this is how much of Oahspe we've read just by reading a few chapters a day. You see how much ground we've covered by being consistent? It blows my mind. And some people will argue about it. We'll be read through it a second time where they still arguing and fighting about the information that could set them free, right? All right. Chapter 35. God declareth against the governments of man. God said, whoso liveth with Jehovah is free from Jehovah. These need no man's government, for they practice righteousness, peace, love, industry, and wisdom with due regard to one another. Such is the Father's kingdom on earth, in which there shall be no laws made by man, neither shall there be leaders or rulers. The progress of man is towards this. The progress of the governments of man should shape toward such a consummation. The time was when laws were requisite unto all things, even to the manner of a man coming in and going out of a house, and to every occupation that man followed, and to every occupation that man followed, with licenses and taxes regulating them, the time of apprenticeship to a barber, to a weaver, to a lawyer, to a preacher, to a physician, to a smith, and to all other trades and occupations, with examinations and passports to practice with the king's dominions, with rates for fees and rights and privileges. I'm sorry, y'all. I was thinking, this is crazy. I was thinking about something. I don't know why we would need to, but I'm just going to do. I was wondering if we should take our passports. We don't need it because Hawaii is a part of the, state. But I feel like we probably need to take them. So I'm going to just take them. I don't even know why, and for me to read passports in here right now, look, all our stuff is packed up with the exception of that. We have the passports and the passport cards. I'm going to just get both of them. If I figure out why, I'll let y'all know. Listen. The time was, verse 4, page 695. The time was when laws were requisite unto all things, even to the manner of a man coming in and going out of a house, and to every occupation that man followed, with licenses and taxes regulating them, the time of apprenticeship to a barber, to a weaver, to a lawyer, to a preacher, to a physician, to a smith, and to all other trades and occupations, with examinations and passports to practice within the king's dominions, with rates for fees and rights and privileges. But these laws and governments were for the past eras. They were righteous in the first place, for they shaped man's judgment toward perfecting himself. But behold, a new time is in the world. From the acquisition of knowledge, a new liberty hath been born into the world, and crieth out on every side. Throw open the doors unto all trades and occupations. Behold, the multitude are sufficiently wise to judge themselves as to whom they shall patronize. Judgment is rendered against the laws and governments of man in all cases where they prevent the liberty and choice of man to his avocation and knowledge. It is not sufficient for thee to say, behold, the public will be taken advantage of by ignorant pretenders. Thou hast no right to say what the public will suffer, and thus base a law on prospective damage. When the public have suffered, and when they themselves demand protection by such laws, then shall such laws be made. To make such laws beforehand is to sin against Jehovah. It was said of old, thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath day. And it was defined what a man should not do on that day. Judgment is rendered against that law. Nevertheless, I put not aside the practice. Okay, listen. We read this. I mentioned Begon God, but we read this when we were reading about Begon God, right? It was one of the references that it sent us to. That's why I got this highlighted up. I remember now. It's kicking back in. Okay. I haven't got this marked out Sabbath, right? Listen. Verse 10. It was said remember, Begon God was where the whole communion started, right? The Uzzians were the ones who started the whole eating flesh and drinking blood, and different religions adopted it, even Christianity, and put all of that on JC. Now the real JC, whose name was Joshua, never did such a thing, right? And he stayed in line with what we're learning, what Oahspe says, right? He was constantly telling you to look at the creator, obey the creator's laws and regulations, right? Which is life, and extending life to all things, not to do unscrupulous things against your brethren and your sister, and right? How to walk in love, like, and we see some remnants of that in the New Testament, but a lot of stuff they done chopped and screwed about the true person, right? You get a better, truer story by reading about let's just say the real JC, whether you want to call him Hamashiach, Yehoshua, Yahawashai, whatever term. But if you want to learn about the real one, you'll get a better, clearer story by reading a Scene's gospel about him. And it clears it up even more here in Oahspe, right? So I'm just saying, New Testament is still full of shenanigans, and there were some things that absolutely did not happen, especially the death on the cross, the oops of the prophet's will, right? That was a spit in the face of those who've been led astray. Like, it's like a mockery to your own ignorance of what this really was that they were doing, right? And verse 10, it was said of old, thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath day. And it was defined what a man should not do on that day. Judgment is rendered against that law. Nevertheless, I put not aside the practice. But the time hath come now when man shall judge himself as to whether he will or will not keep any day sacred. He said, it's all incumbent upon you now. I've taught you the ways during that cycle. Now that we're in a new cycle, I'm going to let you choose, right? And you choose what you think is best for you based on the righteousness and things you've learned. Now, I am of the habit of still obeying the Sabbath, right? Because that's a law that I know holds true, especially if you're out here working every day. You need a time to rest. If you don't, your body will begin to break down. Your body will take its rest. And if you don't allow that time for your body to recuperate, right, you get spiritually depleted, right? I've never known how much the Sabbath was important till I actually start putting it into practice while actually reading. I didn't realize, I'm not saying it's taking a lot out of me, but by the end of the week, by me doing this every day, and not just this, but also everything else that I'm required to do by being a wife, a mother, business owner, all these different things that I'm required to do, it is incumbent upon us to take a rest and really take care of our bodies. And that's just not for believers, that's for any living human being on the face of the earth, right? You absolutely need to take a day to rest. You don't need to be arguing about what day it is or what day you choose to use, right? You choose, right? You choose, right? But I would say test it as well, because there is an extra, at least I found it to be true, there's this extra special bit of season or something that's sprinkled on you when you're lined up with the correct Sabbath according to the Creator's time clock. The rest is so sweet. It's you will have to experience it to really understand what I'm trying to explain to you. There's like no words for it. It's like this supernatural rest that happens, right? You have to test it and experience it to even believe what I'm saying. But I'm telling you, when you get it and you feel it and you experience it, you will know You can be like, where is that video where sis was talking about this? Yo, I think I know what you're talking about, because this Sabbath, I ain't never y'all, you just got to experience it to really know what I'm talking about. There is not even words for what happens to your spirit, even where it's rejuvenated and you just like, it literally feels like you're being filled up. I don't like if your cup was empty, it's like you get that refreshing. Y'all get it, right? I hope you'll get it. At least test it and try it. Don't believe what I'm saying. Take what I'm saying and actually go test it. Do your own due diligence to see if these things that I'm saying is true, right? Because I'm going to do it when you tell me something. You give me a reference. I'm going to go check it out, right? I'm going to let you know if I agree or if I don't agree. Or if I even took the time to test whatever theory it is that you've presented, right? And I won't argue against it until I have done it, right? And everybody should be that way. Verse 10, I'll read again. It was said of old, thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath day. And it was defined what a man should not do on that day. Judgment is rendered against that law. Nevertheless, I put not aside the practice, but the time hath come now when man shall judge himself as to whether he will or will not keep any day sacred. Moreover, man shall not henceforth be accountable as to whether he keep or not keep any day as a sacred day. Yet this accountability, I'm sorry, keep screwing up this word. Yet this accountability shall be unto all men, whether they fulfill in wisdom and righteousness their utmost capacities. There was a law of circumcision, but I rendered judgment against that law also, for it hath fulfilled its time. This law I put aside in practice, but I give it as a permission to the adult that he may or may not fulfill the circumcision according to his own judgment. Judgment is also rendered against infant baptism, and I put aside this law also, and I make it an abomination before Jehovah. Do y'all see? Like, have y'all really thought about why the cycles are happening? I just learn more and more every day that I actually sit and think about what's happening as I watch. Listen, all of this is training us. Like, the Creator is literally training us and teaching us to his level of understanding, but it's going to take a whole while to get where he's at, right? And I don't think we'll ever attain to it. I think there's just going to be, oh my gosh, there's another room here. Oh my, this place never ends. It's more. The house is bigger. Oh my gosh, did you see this? It just keeps growing, right? So as you grow from an infant all the way up to adult, you're literally becoming God, right? Learning how to juggle different things, even if you get into the business, or even if you don't run your own business, even if you work for somebody else, even if you move up through the ranks of there, you get certain responsibilities and you climb and rank to where you do have charge over certain groups of people. And when you've shown yourself responsible to handle this group of people from like assistant manager, then you can move to manager. And might listen, we got this. I want to retire, right? I want to open up other businesses, but we need somebody to handle this business while we over here expanding over here. So we need a new president for this company. This is happening everywhere, all over the earth. What God, true God, is doing on earth as he controls and has guardianship and development of the earth and the heavens above the earth. We're being trained in all of those things. In each level of life, we should be getting better and better and more sharp. So when we should be able to master that here on this level while we have our flesh. And that way, when we return our flesh back to Mother Earth, right, we enter and we're born into the unseen realm, and our spirit should be so developed to where we just bypass the shenanigans, second heaven, and continue the next level of growth to where we will eventually have charge and be the God over a world and the heavens, right? But that's gonna take hundreds and thousands of years to get to that level, according to what we learned in Oahspe, right? That is the ultimate education and development system that the Father has put in place for his children. Everything we should be getting better. Everything, right? By not now we're releasing you from the law, but not really, right? We're releasing you from the law to see if you can now identify where the law should be appropriated, what goes here, and if this happens here, what should we do here now? Instead of you just following orders, now we want you to be a part of the council. You see how we develop this? See how this is going to help them develop over here? This is why this law was in place. Oh, right. So they're no longer lazy bums. They get up and do something with their life so they can be productive and they can grow, right? Boom. All of this stuff is happening. Y'all, when y'all see it, you can't unsee it. You see it everywhere, in every aspect of life: the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the human species kingdom, in public schools, in homeschools, in colleges, in businesses, everywhere. This is amazing to me. Listen. Verse 15. Judgment is also rendered against infant baptism, and I put aside this law also, and I make it an abomination before Jehovah. Nevertheless, when a child hath attained to 14 years of age, and it choose of its own accord to be sprinkled with water to confirm the rites and ceremonies, then that child shall be thus baptized in the name of Jehovah, but not in the name of God, nor any Lord, nor a Savior, nor an angel. While people fighting over what baptize me in the name of the Father, what baptize me in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, what baptize me just in the name of the Holy Ghost. Y'all, all is wrong. The Creator only. Hold up, y'all. Let me read it again. Verse 16, page 696. Nevertheless, when a child hath attained to 14 years of age, and it chooses of its own accord to be sprinkled with water to confirm to the rites and ceremonies, then that child shall be thus baptized in the name of Jehovah, but not in the name of God, nor any Lord, nor a Savior, nor an angel. This is wisdom, O man, to have no law or government between man and wife. This is ignorance, to have a law between man and wife. Yet because there are bad men and bad women who do marry, it hath been found necessary to have a law between man and wife as regardeth their duties. And anybody that's been married or it still is married, understand that where it's wrong to have a law between a husband and wife, and you really should have a law between a husband and a wife, right? It's either you is or is you ain't. And you can't really understand that till you is a husband or a wife. And then sometimes you might need a mediator, especially when y'all about to go to blows over stuff, right? Listen, you might not want to do that, sis. Don't. Husband, Look, this is wisdom, O man, to have no law or government between man and wife. This is ignorance, to have a law between man and a wife. Yet, because there are bad men and bad women who do marry, it has been found necessary to have a law between man and wife as regardeth their duties. But consider how wrong it is to have a law between a good man and a good wife as regardeth their duties. Better it is for them to be thrown upon their own love and judgment. That is beautiful. I only got one highlighter because I got my other fluffy pen and my other handy dandy tools packed up, ready for Hawaii. Look, listen. It said, oh, this is amazing to me. But consider how wrong it is to have a law between a good man and a good wife, between a good man and good wife, as regardeth their duties. Better it is for them to be thrown upon their own love and judgment. It's better if you let them work that out together. Especially, we found that to be true. Going to different councils and stuff early on, it's like, we might not want to take that counseling advice. We sure enough gonna head to the divorce court if we listen to them. Like, how do you even have a license? Listen, it's better for us, husband, to be thrown upon our own love and judgment. We can work this out together, right? But consider how wrong it is to have a law between a good man and good wife as regarded their duties. Better it is for them to be thrown upon their own love and judgment. After such matter gave I governments and laws unto all people, to the bad and evil-minded, rigid laws with many details. But to the wise and good, I come now as an emancipator, saying, Go ye without laws and government. Fulfill your destinies according to your own judgment, that ye may be an honor and glory to Jehovah. Right? That's just like raising a child that's taking all the lessons that you've taught them, going out there in life and just doing it. Right? Using everything that you've taught them, and even use the wisdom through life's experiences. Even when they don't have like answers for things, they figure it out, right? They don't throw pity parties. They just trust the wisdom and judgment that they've learned. Where they need to seek guidance and wisdom, they do it. They don't make excuses, right? Listen. After such manner gave I governments and laws unto all people, to the bad and evil-minded, rigid laws with many details. But to the wise and good, I come now as an emancipator, saying, Go ye without laws and government. Fulfill your destinies according to your own judgment, that ye may be an honor and glory to Jehovah. In Cosmon, man shall not be longer driven in yoke and harness. He shall stand upright before Jehovah, practicing his highest light with rejoicing, being a free man and a brother to his God. Behold, the Uzzians have a custom of eating bread and drinking wine, saying, after the manner of the worshippers of Bagan God of old, Eat this, for it is my flesh, and drink this, for it is my blood, signifying that they do was commanded by me, God of heaven and earth. Judgment is rendered against this. Let me go back. He said, listen, they saying this like I done told y'all to do this. I ain't said nothing of the sort. Listen. Verse 23, page 696. Behold, the Uzzians have a custom. Remember, Uzzians, it's a group of people, but Uzzians is always the opposite side of righteousness and light. They are those who are living in complete, utter darkness. They don't want to have nothing good. Everything, they're making excuses for everything to keep on doing what they want to do, harming other people in the process, right? Those are Uzzians, and they come from Uz. Behold, the Uzzians have a custom of eating bread and drinking wine, saying, after the manner of the worshippers of Bagan God of old, eat of this, for it is my flesh, and drink of this, for it is my blood, signifying that they do was commanded by me, God of heaven and earth. Judgment is rendered against this custom with abhorrence. Moreover, it shall be henceforth known as blasphemy against Jehovah. Communion is blasphemy against our Creator. Eating wafers, bread, drinking wine, grape juice, in the little cups that they pass around, and drinking out that same filthy cup with everybody's lips, especially during COVID, is putting their mouth on. It's a herpes magnet. He said it's an abomination. Judgment is rendered against this custom with abhorrence. Moreover, it shall be henceforth known as blasphemy against Jehovah. Thy God hath never commanded man to eat flesh and blood, nor pretended that bread and wine were flesh and blood, nor commanded them to be eaten in remembrance of flesh and blood born of any man or woman, or any man of woman. Even for play. You don't act like you doing this disgusting thing. Thy God hath never commanded man to eat flesh and blood, nor pretend that bread and wine were flesh and blood, nor commanded them to be eaten in remembrance of the flesh and blood of any man born of woman. Also have they a custom of decorating and draping themselves in crape, and characterizing the same as a sign of mourning for the dead. Judgment is rendered against such custom, but without prohibition. Jehovah created alive, and Jehovah taketh life away, for all things are his. Remember thy Creator with wisdom, and neither in thy dress nor habit shall thou censure him for what hath been. Neither curb thou the full sorrow of thy heart and thy soul, because thy brother or sister or son or daughter or father or mother hath passed away. However long you need to mourn for your loved one who has recently turned their flesh over back to the earth and are born and completely in spirit now, mourn as long as you need to, right? You're going to be missed. They still here living, but you're going to miss them in the flesh, especially if you don't know how to tune yourself to the realm. Neither curb the full sorrow of thy heart and thy soul, because thy brother or sister, son or daughter, or father or mother have passed away. But remember, Jehovah is all his works, and provideth wisely unto the living and the dead. Jehovah hath said, to man I gave an earthly body, that he might learn earthly things. But death I gave to man, that he might rise to the inheritance of my heavenly kingdoms. He appointeth a time unto all, to some an hour, to some a year, and to some 100 years. Every one fulfilleth to result in wisdom and happiness, and for the glory of the Almighty. I read the verse again. He appointeth a time unto all, to some an hour, to some a year, and to some 100 years. Every one fulfilleth to result in wisdom and happiness, and for the glory of the Almighty. And that, my beautiful people, is where we will end today, right? Hopefully, I done talked long enough where I'm in Atlanta right now, and I done chimed in. Hey, y'all. I got a little bit of signal because my layover is short in Atlanta, but I'll chime in if I can, if I get the signal. But anywho, y'all, today's reading was amazing. Like it always is, right? Hold on. Put my page 696 is where we pause when we read chapters 32. All right, beautiful people. That is it for today. I love y'all. It is Thursday, October the 6th, 2022, day 231 of year 4, reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1,249. That means we have been present for the last 1,249 days, every single day without fail, with the exception of the Sabbath days and that week that I had to take off because I was not treating my body correctly, and it took its rest because I got sick and I had to restore myself, right? We learn from our mistakes. We learn from the things we suffer, right? All right. In Oahspe, we read the book of Judgment, pages 691 to pages 696, and those pages included chapters 32 through 36. Beautiful people, and I think earlier when I started, maybe you weren't here. So if you weren't here, you didn't hear me giving the shout outs, but I left out a couple of people named that I know that is always normally here. Keith and Deshaun, the intuitive goat. Shalom, sis. All right, listen. If I missed you, I'm so sorry. I was trying to just remember just off the top of my head without writing down a whole list of people, but if I'm still talking and I'm live and I got the chance to come in, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, right? Any other names that pop in today, right? Also, for the 12 o'clock, Crackhead Willie, listen, I know you be in, sometimes you be catching the replays at noon. For everybody tuning in at noon, that's just now seeing us at noon, hey, y'all, hey, family. All right, y'all, I'm done. Father, your lessons, not only are they awesome, but they are eternal, and they are good for here and now, and even in the worlds to come. You are just simply, like my husband said, you're just awesome, right? You're just awesome. All right, beautiful people, that is it. Thank y'all for hanging out with me today, and I will see y'all back here, listen, tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but I will be going live when we will be 6 hours behind Eastern Standard Time. So while y'all here, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will still be, I'll be real early in the morning. So when it's 7:15 here tomorrow, it's actually going to be 1:15 in the morning. So I'm going to set a couple alarms while we there in hopes that I do not oversleep, right? So I hope I make it on time, y'all. If we up and we hanging out, I might just stay up until I can get the video done, right? And then I just go to sleep after that, right? I don't know. So y'all pray for me that I make it every morning on time, because I got to be up at 1:15. Well, I got to be up before then, clearly, but I got to be live at 1:15 to make my time daily here at 7:15 Eastern Standard Time, right? I know I can do it. Shucks, y'all do it. People coming from California, they be in different all hours. People is already, well, they still in the day before or the whole, depending on where they at in the United States, people from all different time zones. From my analytics, I'm seeing people all over the world are kind of like tuning in. It ain't a whole lot, but it's a good group of places that people watch the video. And first of all, I'm honored, right? But I'm blown away that people give up their time. They wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning just to tune in, right? And some of them don't even say anything, right? They may not be haters. They just don't want to like hit the like or say anything, but they might be just waking up and listening, right? And I'm just awed at that. But anyway, thank you all. I love you. And I'll see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, on the weekends, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. With the exception of the Sabbaths, we will not be here. But on a backup channel, every day, don't matter if it's Monday through Friday or it's Saturday and Sunday, we will be live premiere 12 p.m. every single day. 7 days a week, unless it's the Sabbath. The Sabbath, we will also observe on the backup channel. We will rest, right? I love y'all. I'm out of here. Peace.